without LeBron, Lakers are strong.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboys
get this win. I don't know, Jack. It's a big decision.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem with saying space.
Pittsburgh at Buffalo.
Thank you. I thought I was right. So anyway,
Yeah, Mac, you're really interested in these playoffs.
so
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning. You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
good morning, everyone, and welcome to NESSP in the Morning with your hosts, Mac and Jack Hirsch, here every Monday through Friday. Here starting off Northeast Streaming Sports. Roku give you the first look at this weekend's sports here on the Roku channel. Good morning, everyone out there. Good morning, everyone that's going to be joining us. Good morning, Jack. How you doing today? Listen, I wasn't disappointed in any of the games, really. We had 3.5 good playoff games. Well, one second half of Baltimore wasn't that good, but Jack was pretty competitive. I mean, it was entertaining. It was worth watching. I didn't get frustrated or disgusted or anything. Every team seemed to have a chance getting into the fourth quarter besides the Texans.
Yeah, well, the Texans hung in. That game was even tied up at the half. The Buffalo game with Kansas City last night, extremely predictable. Did we think anything else? No matter who you thought was going to win, Buffalo or Kansas City going in, virtually everyone agreed it was going to come down to the very, very end. The outcome was going to be in doubt. It was nip and tuck. It was really dramatic. It lived up to its hype. It lived up to its expectations.
Yeah, one game that most of us picked as we make our picks on the Sunday football show. Everybody but one person picked Detroit yesterday. Jim Jeffcoat, our one of our co-hosts on the Big Football Show, Dallas Great, picked Tampa Bay, and for good reasons. I mean, the reasons he gave were pretty much on the money, but it didn't cover the spread. So let's talk a little bit about that game first. The Lions are in the championship for the first time since 1991. Jack, they have a chance at going to the Super Bowl. They got to get by a San Francisco team that isn't as dominant as I think it was last year. They have a chance. They have a real chance here. And honestly, it was a great game to me. Tampa Bay did a lot better than I thought. I thought Detroit would beat them by 14, 17 points. And, I don't know what to say about Baker Mayfield. He had a great year. He played really well. They're down at the 10-yard line. He's got the ball. They got time to move the ball down the field. And Baker throws that interception. And I said on the show that he throws, if he throws 2 touchdowns, he throws 2 interceptions normally. And, is this Baker's team? Is Tampa Bay Baker's team now? I mean, from Brady to Baker. Or is it the same old Baker Mayfield? You like to talk about gatekeepers in boxing. Is Baker like a gatekeeper? He's a real good quarterback, but he's not good enough to win the big one, Jack.
That's interesting, the term you use, gatekeeper, for Baker Mayfield. Is he the line in the sand, more or less, that you can't have a quarterback worse than him start for any NFL team, but anyone who's better than Baker Mayfield is good enough to be a starter, but is Baker Mayfield good enough to be a starter for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? The answer is yes, but I wouldn't trust him with a long-term contract. In reality, he threw 1 interception yesterday. In reality, the other one went off Mike Evans' hands.
True.
We can't look at the statistical line in itself because there's a story behind it. What causes the interception? Last one he threw that ended the game, that was an awful throw. And Baker Mayfield took accountability. He was holding his hands over his head. It was a bad throw. If a quarterback's going to make one awful throw a game, he should be condoned. Jared Goff yesterday had an awful throw in the end zone that should have been picked off. Should have been picked off. It was dropped. And you don't see it in the stat line as an interception. So we tend to forget about it because of that. Baker Mayfield played a really good game yesterday. He kept bringing the Bucs back when the Bucs could no longer run the ball on the Lions, and you knew he had to pass. He was pretty effective. They were resilient. They were hanging in there, and the Bucs played a really good game. And it's a little bit promising for the Bucs next year. They're a little like the Packers. They were two teams in transition. Packers were not expected to make the playoffs. They weren't quite in a rebuilding year, but they were in a transition year where they were going to take a step back and be much better next season. Yet the Packers made the playoffs, got a massive upset over the Cowboys, nearly upset the 49ers. And the Buccaneers, nothing was expected of them. And when they did make the playoffs with a 9-8 record, all the skeptics said, well, they won it in a weak division, this and that, but they won 9-8. They did have a winning record. And then when they won a playoff game against the Eagles, all we heard of the Eagles were a mess. How bad the Eagles were, how terrible they finished the season, like it was a charity case, like anyone could have beaten the Eagles. And now they go into Detroit, a hostile crowd, and they played a pretty strong game. And it looked like for a while that they might actually spring an upset. But of course, the Lions came on a bit in the second half. They got their offense rolling and managed to hold the Bucs off.
And during the season, the Bucs did beat the Packers pretty convincingly. I mean, Baker did have a big game against the Packers. Of course, playoff football is a little bit different than the regular season for sure.
Well, and teams gel as the year goes on. Certain teams gel. Certain teams hit a wall, and we think they're going to regroup, and it never happens. Not only with the Eagles, one of your favorites, the Miami Dolphins, when they hit a wall at the end of the year and they were slumping, we thought, they'll regroup come playoff time. They'll get it together. Whether they get to the Super Bowl or not, it's another matter, but they're going to be a lot stronger than they were ending the season, and it didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. And there's there's always a lot of little stories that some people pay attention to, some don't. Listen, the center for the Detroit Lions, let me see if I get his name. Number 7. I know what his number is.
As a center for the Detroit Lions, Max, don't spend 22 seconds getting his number.
Oh, I will, because to me he played a hell of a game. He was all banged up. He was in a lot of pain, and he opened a hole against one of the biggest defensive tackles in football, and that was Greg Daniels. Gaines. I got his name. His leg was all messed up from a couple plays ago. He toughed it out. He made that block. And listen, Detroit scored a touchdown going right up over him. And to me, Jack, that's what football is all about. To me, it's not a waste of time. It's about people doing something that we probably wouldn't do in normal life. We wouldn't go to work if our leg was in so much pain that we couldn't stand. Not only is he standing, he's in there blocking one of the best defensive tackles in the NFC. So to me, that's a big deal. The owner too, I want to give her credit. I mean, nobody wanted to go to Detroit. That was like the whole, anybody that got drafted to Detroit or anybody that got traded to Detroit, they weren't unhappy. Right now, I think people want to go to Detroit. Sheila Ford.
Well, I don't know about them wanting to go to Detroit, but Detroit has a buzz. They've never been to a Super Bowl before. This is it against the 49ers. They go to the Super Bowl. If the Lions can cut a deal right now, let us beat the 49ers, go to the Super Bowl, and we're willing to lose 48-0 just so we finally get there. That's their season, just getting to the Super Bowl in itself. But they're going to have a big mountain to climb in the 49ers. So much is about attitude. You take the two coaches in this playoff weekend, Campbell and LaFleur, with the Lions and the Packers. They won the coin toss. They didn't defer to get the ball in the second half first like I would have done, because both teams wanted to send the message. Packers got the ball. They took it down the field. They settled for field goal. But the bottom line is they got points in the beginning. They wanted to show they were going to be aggressive. The Lions did the same thing, and they went 3-and-out.
Yeah.
It was the Buccaneer defense that sent the message. Okay, you want the ball first. You want to show us something. We'll show you something. And you got the feeling then this was going to be a long afternoon for the Lions, that they weren't going to run over the Buccaneers when the Buccaneers gave them a 3-and-out to start the game when the Lions asked to get the kickoff.
Good morning, Rick. Glad to have you aboard. We'll get to all the coaching news here after we go over the games. And yeah, where what happened with the Eagles. Listen, Jack, to me, Detroit, nobody, I talking to Jim Jeffco, nobody wanted to go play in Detroit. That's not a destination they wanted to go to. But this owner, this lady owner there, and restructured the whole Lions organization between business and football. They kept Campbell, even though Campbell didn't have a good year last year. She said, we're not going to rotate coaches like we did in the past. We're going to keep people there and let them build the program. To me, and the draft picks were excellent. What do you mean, no, Jack? I listened to her say that.
No, because 2 years ago, I wish I had the tape. I was telling you 2 years ago, in 2 years, the Lions have gone to the Super Bowl. And you put me down here in this show.
You said they were going to Super Bowl.
Matt, you're probably going to say
they went to the
Lions go to the Super Bowl. You're going to say you predicted it.
What does that have to do with me giving credit to the owner? You just want credit.
Let's not get carried away, Matt. Any franchise that wins, players want to go there. They want to go anywhere to win.
Jack, you're not letting me finish. I'm telling you. They did not want to go play with Detroit. And that's a fact. Nobody wanted to go play for the Detroit Lions. So, besides your ranting and raving doesn't make you right and me wrong. I'm telling you, nobody wanted to go play for the Detroit Lions at that time. And now they probably
do. Of course, Mac. No one would want to play for the Green Bay Packers if they were major losers. No one would want to go to Detroit. No one would want to go to Buffalo. Certain locations players don't want to go to if it's a bad franchise. It's not appealing to them. But
they
Detroit
hadn't been to championship since 1991, Jack. We're talking 40 years. We're not talking about a team that hasn't been in a championship in 5 or playoff. They didn't even play in the playoffs. The team went 0-16, if I'm correct, or 1 win. I forget what it was. Nobody wanted to play for them. So anyway, we'll push on from that because. Anyway, I did respect the game Baker had. The running game was pretty good. Jared Goff, the dude is accurate. One of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. There's no doubt about it.
He's a good game. He's a good game manager. Jared Goff is a good, competent quarterback. Let's not get carried away. He's not a game.
Why do you want to argue with everything? Why do you want to argue with everything I said? I said he's a very accurate quarterback.
I don't want to mislead anyone as far as Jared Goff
goes. What is misleading? Jack, we're not going to get to any of the news. What is so misleading about Jared Goff being accurate? You don't think he's accurate?
He's accurate, but Matt, the next thing was I don't want to build up the virtues of Jared Goff like he's one of the best quarterbacks in the game. He made some poor throws yesterday. He managed the game well on balance. He's a good quarterback. The Lions should move forward with Jared Goff as their franchise quarterback because he's good, but he's not a difference making the mold of a Patrick Mahomes.
Or sort of like a Josh Allen. He's not that good. I mean, he's not that much. No, or someone that just got beat. He's not that good. He's okay. Anyway, Kansas City plays Buffalo. First half, Buffalo's up 17-13. Listen, Cook was used a lot. Josh Allen runs for a couple touchdowns. Casey just keeps coming back as Patrick Mahomes is, again, he's a pretty accurate quarterback, right, Jack? He moves the ball down the field.
Quarterback in the game.
It's Kelsey. He's one of the best. I don't know if he's the best. He's
one of the best of all time.
Okay, yeah, he's right up there with the greats. Anyway, he hits Kelsey. Kelsey has a better game than he's had in the last maybe six games. I mean, he's got a couple of nice balls. Pacheco runs as hard as we thought they would. The defenses at the end of the game really decided the game. A lot more running than what happened, I think, in the past, where you saw Josh Allen throwing the ball over the place, Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball over the place. Different teams this year, Jack, more balanced. Listen, it was a good game. A lot of people are comparing this miss at the end of the game to Scott Norwood's miss in the Super Bowl. That was for a win. It was the Super Bowl. This was for a tie. But anyway, listen, as I said in the Big Football Show, it comes down a lot to kickers, Jack. Who has the best kicker? And to me, the Chiefs have one of the best kickers in the league. Buffalo's kicker is a little iffy. He missed a couple times in certain situations this year. So, hey.
Well, let me just say, Pacheco, the Chief running back, is a beast. He played a great game. Buffalo didn't have much of a running game. Cook had a lot of carries. Wasn't that effective. And you talk about Stephon Diggs. He's been a good team guy, at least outwardly, towards the end of the season after being perceived as a prima donna. But he didn't come up big. They didn't even target him a lot. But there was one pass where, he should have caught a long pass from Josh Allen. He mistimed his jump. And talk about one of the rules. I think the rule you hate the most, Mac, correct me if I'm wrong. If you're on the offense, you fumble the ball, it goes out of the end zone, you turn it over to the other team. It's not like a fumble and not brought back to your own 20. So the Chiefs yesterday are virtually on the goal line. They're on the 2-yard line or something. So they run a fancy end-around sweep or something. McCole Hardman gets the ball. The player who came from the Chiefs to the Jets, who the Jets wouldn't even give carries to, who the Jets traded back to the Chiefs this year, he fumbles the ball for the second time in the game. The first time the Chiefs recovered, and it goes out of the end zone. And you wonder, with all the different options, why are you getting fancy at the goal line and putting the ball in Hardman's hand? I admit the play was a surprising play. Maybe caught the Chiefs off balance, but he wouldn't have gotten a touchdown anyway. If he didn't fumble, he was going to be a little short of the goal line. Sometimes teams get a little fancy for their own good, like Buffalo did early in the game. They have something like a 4th and 4, and they fake a punt. Why not let Josh Allen just line up and go for it in that situation? But they think they're catching the Chiefs off balance, not concentrating that moment, and they come up short. But the Chiefs didn't capitalize because of the Hardman fumble. And there were a couple of other throws made by Josh Allen that I think got caught up in the wind. You mentioned a missed field goal by Buffalo. The wind was a factor. The wind really was a factor. But with that said, you have to find a way to make these kicks even into the wind. It wasn't like a crapshoot type kick, like you're going for a 58-yarder late in the game where you're putting everything into it and you just want to get the distance and hope the wind works in your favor.
In the Buffalo, is it the Buffalo kicker, the one with the bad leg? Jack had the bad leg, I think, right?
That had nothing to do with it. The ball was just hooked a little bit wide, and it's. Yeah,
no, I'm talking about punting. I'm talking about punting, Jack. I think he had a bad leg, a few bad punts. No, that's not. You got Diggs. I think Cook ran for over 100-something yards yesterday.
No, he didn't. No, Cook did not. Absolutely not. No, Mac, take my word. Cook averaged about 3.5 yards a carry. Didn't have a good game.
Diggs has one of the Vikings' greatest moments, but he's a cancer, a distraction, at best to anything.
Well, to Rick's point, I won't disagree. That's the way it was. I don't know the way it is right this moment. Keep this in mind. At the end of the season, and in these playoff games, the Bills haven't been going out of their way to target Diggs. Maybe because Diggs has been double-teamed a lot of the time. We don't know what the story is, but the Bills are not going out of their way to accommodate him. Sometimes teams give in to these star receivers who start complaining. So they try to target them a little bit more than normal just to keep them happy, basically to shut them up. And also because they're great players and they can help But Diggs was your thunderbolt yesterday. He was the one player who
Yeah.
could really, make that big play to turn the game around. And a couple of times, Josh Allen did go to him deep, for the big strike,
Yeah.
and it didn't work out. One time, was defended against, and then he underthrew a little bit. But another time, Diggs the ball was there. He should have caught it. He just missed time this jump.
And I mean, receivers do miss balls and some things happen and everything. Listen, I think Kansas City just outplayed Buffalo in the second half. Honestly, I really do.
And that's something I thought in the second half, Matt. The final
Yeah,
drive.
go ahead, Jack.
The Bills are taking it down the field, and you're getting the feeling they're going to score a touchdown. They're going to go up 4 points, and Kansas City is going to have virtually no time on the clock, no timeouts, maybe a half minute left to score a touchdown, to take it down the field. And they weren't going to do that, Kansas City. But Kansas City's defense, after faltering on the last drive and allowing the Bills to take it down the field, they held firm. They held. So my theory is this a little bit, okay? That sometimes the offenses get tired. We think the defenses get tired and they're back on their heels. They're exhausted. But sometimes it's such an effort by the offense to execute and keep taking the ball down the field. They kind of run out of steam. We saw that in the Super Bowl years ago with the 49ers and the Ravens. The Raven defense at the end of the game was really faltering bad, but they got it together at the very end to stop the 49ers. It's like they had that last gasp of greatness in them, the defense. And that's what happened with the Chiefs yesterday. Chiefs won that game primarily because of their defense. Patrick Mahomes was great like normal. Played a great game. He mixed it up. His receivers he mixed it really well with his receivers. Pacheco was outstanding. But their defense, made some very nice stands when they had to.
Yeah, and I think Buffalo's defense played pretty well too, especially for all the injuries they had. I think it was more.
Yeah.
I think it was more a complete game. Both teams were trying to run the ball. Both teams going to their tight ends a lot. Both teams, their defenses performed well in spots. So I'm good, honey. I'm good. So anyway,
and also this is a thought. Let me ask you. I thought going into this season, Buffalo's championship window had closed. I thought they were going to win the Super Bowl 1 year ago, and they didn't do it. They got eliminated in the playoffs. I thought the window if it didn't close, it was closing. And of course, they didn't get to the Super Bowl this year. But going into next year, is their window really closed? Are they going to be right back with the rest of the teams? Are they very serious contenders to go there? Are they kind of just slipping a little bit?
I really don't know. I can't tell you, Jack. I thought so too. I thought they kind of plateaued out. Listen, you got Josh Allen. You got a decent young running back. You had a good tight end. Defense played a lot better this year. Their running game was a lot better. They didn't just depend on Josh Allen like they did during the year, like they did every year.
Yesterday, James Cook did not play a big game.
Jack, you can't just blame James Cook. The offensive line's got to open the holes too. So they're for the most part, their running game improved a lot from last year. That you'd have.
But the difference makers a running back. Pacheco yesterday. No. When he didn't have the hole and he had guys on him, he still barged forward and would keep getting extra yards. He was like a beast. Christian McCaffrey with the 49ers, the same thing. He made things happen when he didn't have the biggest hole.
Christian McCaffrey doesn't get hit until he's in the secondary sometimes, Jack. I'm just saying the Buffalo Bills running game improved this year than it was from the year before. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to compare running backs to that. I think they had a decent running game this year, and I think that's why they got to the playoffs this year more than they did last year. I think they were more a complete team. They weren't just dependent on just Josh Allen. And I think that's why they made that little run and made it to the division title.
Fair enough.
Yes. So Baltimore, of course, we know what happened with them. They kind of dominated the offense of Texas. They couldn't run the ball. CJ Stroud, he was under pressure the whole game. And, now they're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, Jack. Baltimore has not done too well against Kansas City either in the playoffs. Kansas City has normally beat them. But this is the championship. It's in Baltimore. And that Baltimore defense is a lot better than the Buffalo defense is, Jack. And their offense is no slouch either. I don't know. Maybe this is the year Baltimore makes the Super Bowl. I would still go with the Chiefs just because, for some reason, I think Patrick Mahomes will do something, and I think Jackson will do something that will hurt them. And that's just the way I feel. So
I don't remember the Colts and the Chiefs and the Ravens really having a playoff history. It doesn't pop into my head.
They played each other.
Buffalo and the Chiefs have had a big
playoffs. Jack. I think they played in the playoffs a couple times. I mean, they've both been in the playoffs. So I'm not saying it was their Buffalo rivalry. I see you go to the extreme. I'm saying I think the Chiefs have beaten them when they played in the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe I am. I don't know. But anyway, I think this is going to be a different test for the Chiefs. Mahomes ain't going to have some of the time he had, and I think Baltimore's linebackers are excellent. And it's going to be a tough game for the Chiefs to beat Buffalo and Buffalo, Jack.
And to beat Baltimore, you mean? Yeah. But getting back to Buffalo one quick second, they had a lot of injuries, especially their linebacker cause, and Mahomes was able to take advantage of that. The Ravens are predominantly healthy, and they do have a high-powered offense as well. And I noticed Josh Allen made a conscious effort not to run unless he absolutely had to. The Ravens are going to design certain running plays for Lamar Jackson in this particular game. And the Ravens have a really good defense, We're going to hear all the talk about Lamar Jackson leading up to this game because he's the glamour guy. Can he finally get to the Super Bowl? But it's going to be really the Raven defense, which the Chiefs are going to have to deal with here. And certainly between Mahomes, Kelsey, Pacheco, mixing in the other receivers, they're certainly capable. But it's going to be a hard job for Kansas City going to Baltimore. Baltimore's already favored by 3.5 points. Sure. Keep that in mind, a half point more than a field goal. That's kind of revealing.
Well, I mean, it's not like the points against the spread aren't as revealing as we think. They're just saying what they think. What you got?
In 2010.
Yeah, 2010. Yeah, that's quite a while ago. So 2021 was the recent matchup with Kansas City. So you're right, Jack. They haven't played in playoffs since 2010.
I didn't recall any history.
Yeah,
But even if it was, all the time when we watch NFL games, we see them put on the screen the history with the two teams, what they did against one another in the playoffs. I want to see the history with the players who are still on the roster because that's more revealing. What happened in 2005 is really irrelevant because one franchise beat another then. But then again, it could get inside your head. Remember when the Lakers and the Celtics many years ago, the Lakers could never beat the Red Auerbach Celtics, and it carried over into the Pat Riley era with the Lakers. And it got in their head. They could never beat that Celtic franchise. So sometimes it could be a carryover. I agree.
Definitely. Rick says good morning to the producer, Linda, there. We're going to some facts here instead of just us, instead of me just going off the top of my head. To me, Jack, listen, I think Baltimore should be the favorite. As I said, and you repeated, Baltimore's defense is probably the best defense right now left in the playoffs. That's a true Super Bowl defense. They're number in the top 3 in every category across the board. Patrick Mahomes will have to pull out some magic, I think, to beat the Ravens. Not that he can't do it, but it's going to be a lot tougher than Buffalo. So let's get into San Francisco and Detroit. We know what happened San Francisco and Detroit, right? That's who played.
No, I think you said Buffalo instead of Baltimore. But I just want to say one very quick comment, and then we'll go to the next game.
Go ahead.
6 years in a row, the Chiefs have made it to the AFC Championship
Yes,
game.
yes,
That's
yes.
phenomenal. Six
Yeah.
years in a row that they're there. So think of the amount of pressure that's going to be on both Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson's finally getting to that AFC Championship game. And and who does it mean more to? I mean, Lamar Jackson has to get over the top at some point and get to his Super Bowl. And Patrick Mahomes has already established his legacy. Okay, there. So think of the pressure that's going to be on the Ravens in Baltimore. They're never going to be set up any better than they are. And, this Sunday at home, team's basically healthy, very strong unit. It's going to be a really, good game.
I hope so. I think so. I think Baltimore maybe does it this year. So anyway, San Francisco plays Green Bay. We know what happened. McCaffrey had a huge game. He's been playing, one of the best backs in the league by far. The Green Bay offense did pretty good as we've mentioned before. Them 2 field goals in the beginning hurt them. They did play a great game, another great game. San Francisco has me a little worried, Jack, and I'm gonna tell you why. Green Bay really ran on San Fran, and it wasn't a trick play. It wasn't anything. Me and Jim talked about it a lot in the big show. Really, they just brought the wide receiver down on the end, and they got to the outside. I imagine that Detroit will do the same thing, follow what they did. It worked one time, try it again, see if it works against them. And again, Detroit's running game is not the best. It's really good. But they do have a lot of wide receiver weapons. St. Armand, Williams out there. And let's not forget about that tight end. I'm going to talk about the tight ends a little bit in a minute, too. Laporta, man, that rookie tight end is unbelievable. Hurt, still making big catches, making huge catches, for Goff. And I think San Fran, it depends on Debo. Is he healthy enough? Is this the time Purdy makes his move and goes to the Super Bowl? He got hurt the year before when he went up against the Eagles last year. And, he's kind of respected, but he's not respected. One time I hear he's a franchise quarterback. The next time I hear he's a great game manager. He's got so much talent around him. That's why he's so good. I mean, to me, this is going to be really interesting. I think that the San Francisco 49ers are going to pound Detroit. I can see them running constantly against Detroit behind their big offensive line with McCaffrey. And I can see Detroit maybe throwing the ball more than they have and maybe using that little sweep outside to try to get the fast little guy there, number 26. I think his name is Williams, out in the open. I think it's going to be a very good game. I expect to see San Francisco run the ball a lot, Jack.
Well, keep in mind, it's only 50-50 whether Deebo Samuels is going to be playing.
Yeah.
I mean, he says he's going to be playing. The medical staff has their doubts with the shoulder injury that, he suffered. And we're going to see, it made a big difference in the Packer game when Samuel went out. It really did. And I know we hear, well, this is football. Next guy has to step up. You have to make the adjustments. I know that. Obviously, that's the case. But when you have a big weapon like that and you're counting on him, you're game planning for him. You're game planning for him all week long. And all of a sudden, he's no longer available. That means you have to alter the game plan during the game. And it makes it that much harder because all the reps that one guy is taking in practice that another guy could be having, he didn't get those reps. So is he going to be as sharp? But the 49er defense did tighten up in the second half. Aaron Jones really ran on them very aggressively in the first half, but they tightened up the 49er defense in the second half, and they made a defensive stand, basically. And that last drive by Purdy's in the second year here. Last year in the NFC Championship game, he was injured. He couldn't throw the ball. They put in their backup quarterbacks in there, and then they had to bring Purdy back because what's his name? Josh Jacobs or what? Not Josh Jacobs. Their backup quarter, their third stringer even, they had to take out, got injured. And Purdy had to come in just to hand the ball off. It was like the 49ers were conceding the game to the Eagles because they didn't have a quarterback who could throw the ball. It was the craziest thing, I ever saw since I was a little kid, and Tom Matty had to take over as the Baltimore Colts quarterback, a halfback, as Johnny Unitas and his backup Gary Quazzo got hurt during the game. So Brock Purdy led that final drive. He took the 49ers down the field to score the touchdown, and we knew that was it. If they didn't score the TD, game was going to be over, and they did it. Okay, yep. So kudos to Brock Purdy. He's their franchise quarterback. Let's not penalize him because he has weapons. He shows he can get it done.
Hey, listen, I'm a big fan of Purdy. I always have been, especially of being an underdog like he's been and making his way up to become a starter. So that's a hell of a story. I think it's just going to be interesting to see, Detroit, now they're going to San Francisco. And there's certain things that each team does that the other team doesn't do well. For instance, Detroit's not good against the run. San Francisco's a good running team. Detroit, the Packers kind of showed that maybe San Francisco's defensive backfield and their rushes and it didn't really get to Jordan Love like we thought it would, and maybe that is what Detroit's best at. I think it's going to be a pretty good game, Jack, and we'll see what happens. Listen, Lions are a big story because they're in the championship for the first time. Here comes San Francisco.
Well, they've been Lions won the NFC championship game once before.
I'm not going back to 1960, Jack. I'm just saying.
No, 1990s, but they've never been to the Super Bowl.
To get to the Super Bowl, you got to win a championship, right?
Right. You could be in the NFC championship game. If you lose it, you don't go to the Super Bowl. Right. They've been in that game.
1991, Jack, right?
Right. And they lost in the NFC championship. So they've been in this.
In fact, Jack, they lost to the Washington Redskins 41-10. I'm really aware of what happened there. So anyway, I'm just saying that these two teams, they kind of do things that their strength is that might be the weakness of the team, and that's all I was trying to get there. So anyway, I think it's going to be a really good game.
But which Lion team is going to show up? How effective will Jared Goff be? Okay, in this game, and how will he be able to utilize his receivers? I mean, Gibbs played a really good game of running back yesterday. Will he be able to run on the 49ers the same way he did on Tampa Bay? The Lion defense, they played a little loose in the first half yesterday against the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers were able to run the ball on them. Then they tightened up. They forced Baker Mayfield to pass. But I'm a little concerned about the Lions secondary. But then again, the 49er offense isn't geared to stretch the field. They're geared to throw a lot of short passes to Kittle, to Samuel, to McCaffrey, and let them do their thing once they have the ball, run with the ball. So it's going to be a good game. I think the Lions are going to be there. I don't look for a 49er route the way some people are. Some people are ready to concede that the 49ers are flat out the better team. They're going to get to the Super Bowl. I'm not so sure the 49ers even win the game.
49ers are favored by 7.5 points at this time. So it's a pretty big spread. The tight ends, I want to talk a little bit about the tight ends, Jack. And, again, I mentioned the Detroit tight end, of course. You got Kittle in there. You've got Kelsey in there. And it seems to me that when it comes to playoff time, I remember even back when I was a kid watching football, the Bravaros and the Winslows and all these guys. When it gets to the playoffs, the teams really depend more heavily on their tight ends, it seems like, when it comes to the playoff time. And they say the best friend of a quarterback is a good tight end. And it just goes to show you that the teams with some of the best tight ends in the league are still in this game. I'm not sure who the tight end was for the Green Bay Packers. I didn't follow them as much as I did the other teams. But I know Kittle, Kelsey, and Laporta. Man, they play some. There's some good tight ends over there. So
how did Kelsey get so open yesterday on, the first of his two touchdowns, the longer pass, not where he lunged over the end zone. How did he get that open? That had to be a miscommunication on the part of the Bills because you know that Kelsey's a major target of Mahomes. So how could there not be one guy on him all the time?
Great scheming, Jack. I mean, it's great scheming by the offensive coordinator. They're flooding they're flooding a certain zone, and they're having him. It looks like he's going to the sideline, and he just continues going up. And I mean, Kelsey and Mahomes, they broke or set a record, with Brady and Gronk there. They're just on the same page. They know they kind of read each other. They got a lot of option reads that they do that Kelsey does off the coverage and who's covering them, and they're just together. Those two have been playing together for a while, and they're just really good. They're like a Gronk and a Brady.
That's a great debate question, but we probably have to wait to see when all is said and done, and at least one of the guys is retired. What is a better quarterback tight end combination? Brady and Gronk, or Mahomes and Kelsey? But we got to wait for the Mahomes and Kelsey to retire first, or go to another team. As long as they're together, their story could continue.
True, very true. And again, as we talked about, special teams are huge in the playoffs. A lot more, punt return here, kick return there, punter, a hurt punter, and a kicker that's a little more accurate than the other one can really win the game for you. And that's against. Right.
And one of the things too, Kansas City's kicking game and Baltimore's kicking game, both teams have great kickers in that game. But then now you wondered with the 49ers and the Lions, the 49ers, kicking game has been a little bit erratic. You wonder whether that can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Everything will make a difference. You talked about the fumble out of the end zone. The NFL is going to review that play. I guess in the offseason here,
Yeah,
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think it's like a penalty for somebody trying really hard to get in the end zone. That's kind of crazy.
Well, if you fumble the ball, it goes out of the end zone. It goes over the line. The team that fumbled should still retain possession the same way as if the ball went out of bounds normally. Yeah. But maybe the penalty should be bring it back to their own 20-yard line.
Yeah, whatever.
Bring it back to their own 20. So this way they're they're not close to the end zone. So you have that penalty, kind of indirect penalty for fumbling the ball, but you maintain possession.
I think, Jack, of course, we know the reason why they did that. A long time ago, a guy named David Casper pushed the ball, maybe by accident, maybe not to the end zone. And of course, if you fumble the ball ahead when you're running with the ball, it goes out on the sideline wherever the ball went out of bounds. So that's the rule on the field. But the end zone to me is a guy trying really hard to get to the end zone, that you're penalizing the team. Maybe you bring it out to the 20-yard line, their 20-yard line, and let them go from there if you're not going to give them the points. I think that's it is, Rick. It's a stupid rule.
Maybe you treat it like intentional downing. They lose a down or something, an extra down they lose as a result of that. Let's say they fumble over the line and it's on third down. Then they turn the ball over because they lose it down. Maybe something like that, loss of down.
Maybe. I don't know. I know right now it's a dumb rule.
I don't like, but whatever they decide, we're in sync, Mac. I don't like that rule either, the way it stands.
So the Eagles fired both their defensive coordinators. The first one that got replaced by Patricia, and Patricia is fired too. We talked a little bit about this before on the show before, folks. My feelings is, listen, Sirianni, they're keeping Sirianni around while firing all the people around him, and that's kind of the head coach should be the man in charge. If he wasn't, and he's, to me, I just don't respect that. Those are your guys. Hopefully you're the one that brought him on. If you weren't the one that brought him on, you're still not the guy. I just don't like this move. The Eagles, it's just to me, it's all messed up.
I don't know how smart a football man Matt Patricia is. I'm assuming he's a very smart one. But the bottom line is he was the head coach of the Detroit Lions, didn't get it done, got fired from there, went to New England. It didn't work out. It was a disaster, him, having some say in the offense with Mac Jones. So now he goes to the Eagles, and it was a disaster over there. That's 3 in a row. What does that mean? Is he going to join Bill Belichick if Bill Belichick's the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons? Is he going to be given a head coordinator's position? There's a rumor going around which does make sense about Josh McDaniels maybe going wherever Bill Belichick goes. And maybe Josh McDaniels goes back to the Patriots if he has a really good relationship with Jared Mayo, the new head coach. Because some guys, Mac, are cut out to be really great coordinators, but not cut out to be head coaches. And Josh McDaniels might fall into that category. Certainly not head coaching material. I mean,
Right.
that's pretty conclusive.
I agree. I agree with that 100%. I agree with that 100%.
But the coordinators are so important. We keep looking at the head coach, and of course they have to be accountable. But if you have coordinators who don't get it done, I mean, it could destroy a team in reality. I mean, look at Baltimore last year with Lamar Jackson. He would be complaining about the offensive scheme. They got a new offensive coordinator this year. He's thriving more. I don't blame the guy who was there last year necessarily, but with the Eagles, something went wrong, and it had to do with the coordinators somewhat at the very least, because Gannon and Steichen, their offensive and defensive coordinators leaving, it had a major effect on that team.
Yeah. Well, listen, it doesn't hurt my feelings the Eagles didn't go any farther, but there's definitely problems there. And to me, the head guy is Nick Sirianni, and that's to me the one that should be answering all these questions and
Well, he
why.
is.
And
You got to make changes.
You can fire everybody you want, bring other people on. You might have the same problem next year, Jack. I don't know. I just know that I respect the head coach that says these are who I hired if I hired them. And I know some coaches that have left their jobs or resigned because they got rid of their offensive defensive coordinator. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with the Eagles next year. Let's get it. Believe it or not, Jack. Now, this is according to some of CBS sources. Chip Kelly may be on the minds of some people of being their offensive coordinator, including the Philadelphia Eagles, Jack.
Chip Kelly coming back to the Eagles?
Yeah.
I mean, I find that hard to believe. And would he want to? When a coach has been when someone's been a head coach in high profile positions, or they've had a high profile, it's not easy going back and being a defensive coordinator. Why not Rex Ryan? If he wants to, he's on ESPN the whole time. No one's going to hire Rex as a head coach. Rex loves defense.
Jack, he's been trying to get a job for almost 2 years on ESPN, vying for some kind of job, and nobody's hiring him. I mean, maybe there's something wrong with his attitude or something. I don't know. They keep saying, "Hey, Rex, you could go." The dude is using that platform and trying to become a head coach or a defensive coordinator. Somebody must not like him. Because he did do a decent job, right? When he was head coach of the Jets, he was a decent defensive coordinator. Maybe because of what he says on the shows, maybe they hold that against him. I don't know.
Well, he was also Rex Ryan was the Baltimore Ravens defensive coordinator when they won the Super Bowl, when they had one of the great defenses in Super Bowl history.
I agree.
People forget he went to the Buffalo Bills and he was their head coach after the Jets, and that didn't quite work out. But Rex knows defense.
Yeah,
I would trust Rex.
I know
if I were the head coach, I would want Rex to come and I say, Rex, this is your defense. You work it out. But let's be close. Let's go out to dinner once a week, have lunch once a week. Let's talk the team. Keep me in the loop of what you're doing. And all I ask, if I make suggestions, you don't necessarily have to take them, but I want to know that you're you take my suggestion seriously and you'll really think it out. And if you think it's a good suggestion, you'll actually use it. And if Rex is accommodating that way, you could have a good relationship with him if he's a head coach. Why wouldn't you want to have Rex Ryan unless you feel threatened by his personality? Rex has a big personality.
Jack, I don't know. I mean, listen, like I said, he's been using that platform for a couple of years trying to get a defensive coordinator job. There's defensive coordinator jobs open all around. You got Philadelphia, the Giants. There are quite a few out there. We'll see. Maybe he gets an interview. I haven't heard nothing about it.
Do a nice job with the Giants. A very nice job because the Giants have the pieces in place. And he would improve a player like Thibodeau, who had moments where he would show greatness during the season and then fall asleep for 3 games in a row, then come up with a tremendous game. I think Rex would make the Giant defense consistent.
The biggest question is, could he get along, with the ball? That would be, as you said, the biggest question is relationships, Jack. Always about the relationships, my friend. Always remember.
But I think Rex would use the job as a defensive coordinator as a stepping stone to trying to be a head coach. I could see him going to the Giants for 1 year, them having a really top of the line defense, and then him being in demand somewhere, leaving, for head coaching job. I don't think Rex would be a long-term proposition as a defensive coordinator.
Maybe so, Jack. Maybe so. I mean, I kind of, if I was Rex, I'd stay right there at the set and just badmouth other defenses like he normally does. That's what I would do.
Why would you want to do that, Mac? If you have a cushiony TV job, it's relaxed. You're not under any pressure. Your profile is out there. People see you on TV, all the time. Why would you want those long hours of being a defensive coordinator unless you really love it? If you really love it, genuinely, okay.
I guess it gets in blood. Like some people, that stuff just gets in your blood and you can't get away from it. Let's do some quick NBA things. The big trade that that Obi-Wan Anunoby there came to the Knicks for with R.J. Barrett, and quickly they faced each other. The Knicks won, beating the Raptors. Both Barrett and Quickly played pretty well. So, I mean, it wasn't like they stunk up the place. Knicks fans gave him a big ovation.
Nice.
Yeah, that was – they think that, New York's classless, but they do something like that where, you see other fan groups booing and
Let me tell you something, Mac. Sometimes sports drives me crazy. I watched a women's fight the other day, Jonas against Mikkel Maya, a women's championship fight, the IBF welterweight title fight. The fight's in the UK. They're playing the American national anthem, and I hear some booing. And I am getting outraged over these idiots in England, considering England's an ally of the United States. They're booing the United States national anthem. Listen to this, Mac. Then they start playing the anthem from the UK. And the UK fans are booing their own anthem louder than the United States one. And so I went from going to outraged to just being exasperated. What can you do?
People just want to boo. Well, there was a let me see, both sides, blah blah blah. Now, Tommy Bear, I guess he compares stats a lot, Jack, and he says that Anunoby has the best plus minus ratio. He's plus 170 in his first 10 games as a guy that went to another team that got traded. He's a little bit better than when try and get the guy's name. He played for the Bulls. Goodness gracious. Paul Gasol, there you go. He had 150. He was first with 157 plus a point differential. So Anunoby has a better point differential than he does right now with them. He's 8-2 with the Knicks. Of course, they beat the Raptors.
Paul Gasol, Kobe Bryant's sidekick, Hall of Famer.
Right.
I can't keep up with these stats, Mac, and all sports, like the war, the this, the that. I'm like, you're like me in that way. You just see a guy play. You know what he can do. Certain stats are good. Like in baseball, on base percentage, how often the guy walks. That's a very important stat that people always seem to overlook. They look at the guy's batting average. They wouldn't look at
Sure.
his on base percentage. That the saying a walk is as good as a hit rings true in a lot of instances. Yet people feel, well, when a guy gets on base on a walk, it's charity. He didn't really earn it the way he would getting a base hit.
Sure.
I know I'm changing sports a second, but we
That's
talk
right.
about Joe DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak, Mac, over and over. Will it ever be broken? How come we don't talk about Ted Williams' 84-game on base streak? Isn't that might be greater than DiMaggio's 56-game hitting streak? You know, it's arguable.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Oh, definitely. Getting
And
on base. You
I
can't
mean,
score if you don't get on base. That's for sure.
Yesterday, stats. Sometimes I go for it. Yesterday, something interesting happened in the Lion Buccaneer game. Okay, the Buccaneers they score a TD. Okay, and they're 8 points down. Okay, the Buccaneers in the fourth quarter against the Lions. Traditionally, you'd think they would kick the extra point. Now they're down 7. And if they score a touchdown again to tie it, they'll kick an extra point again and get it into overtime. Yet the Bucks went for the 2-point conversion. At first I said, no, I'd kick it. And then I thought, this is the right move. Because if you make the 2-point conversion, you're down 6. Next touchdown, you win it. You're not going into overtime. And if you don't make it, and they didn't make it, you have another chance to make a 2-point conversion and tie. You just have to make the 2-point conversion one of the 2 times as opposed to the 2 kicks. And you don't want to go into, but if you make the first 2-point conversion, you could probably go home as a win on the next touchdown. You're not going into overtime. So the statistics showed that, the analysis, what they have, the chart, that it's better to go for the 2-point conversion in that instant. And I kind of like that stat that we saw.
Yeah, I know what you're saying as far as probability and all that, but they still would have to go down they would still have to go down the field and score a touchdown, which they couldn't do at the end anyway. So let's stay with the NBA, Jack. The Lakers they win 134-110. Phoenix beats Indiana 117-110. The Boston's over the Rockets 116-107. Tonight you got Cleveland at the Magic, the Spurs at the 76ers, and the Bucks at Detroit. Jack, I saw an interesting article about Brian McIntyre. I read this morning. He was trainer of the year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Boxing Writers Association of America, Terrence Crawford's trainer.
Right. And he mentioned something about going to jail for bringing a gun on board a plane or something, which is, I mean, he wasn't trying to shoot anybody. He just wasn't supposed to be able to do that. So, I don't know. I don't really follow trainers, Jack. How good is this trainer? How good is McIntyre as a trainer?
Oh, excellent. I mean, Terrence Crawford has his full faith in him. Brian McIntyre is from Omaha, as is Terrence Crawford. He's trained Crawford since the amateurs. They have a very close relationship. What happened with Brian McIntyre? He was in England training Chris Eubank for his rematch with Liam Smith. Liam Smith had stopped Chris Eubank in an upset in the fight before. And under Brian McIntyre's direction, Eubank boxed magnificently in the rematch and stopped Smith. Now McIntyre's going to the airport and he has a gun in his luggage or something. Dumb. And they're tough laws in England. And he was in jail for a couple of months. People thought it might be a long stretch, but eventually they kind of let him out. And later McIntyre, to his credit, said, look, they treated me very well when I was in jail. I didn't mean anything. And he admitted he did a dumb thing.
Yeah.
You know what he did. So that's with that. But trainer of the year, let's see what Terrence Crawford's next move is. That we're going to talk about it on Glove Fist tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Frank Laterzo and myself.
Sounds great, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned for Coffee and Sports. We'll see you again tomorrow on NESSP in the morning.